the Spurs got thunderstruck in OKC, but they got to play the Jazz right away. And then is Kendrick Perkins right about Wemby and Chet comparison?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. Thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first and only stop for all things San Antonio Spurs. Subscribe wherever we get podcasts, such as on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app. Seriously, go to any type of podcasting platform. You'll find Locked On Spurs and the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network, such as the rest of the NBA teams, NFL. Seriously, we have you covered. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can get $5 bet, and then you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. What are we talking about today? You can see it on your screen if you're watching on the YouTube side of things. We are discussing the disaster in OKC. Yeah, the Spurs got popped in the mouth in OKC. What went wrong? Pretty much everything you could think of. Throw a dart at the dartboard. Yeah, that went wrong. We're going to try to give you 3 takeaways / 3 reasons why the Spurs just fell apart in OKC. They got no time to think about it. They got to go play Utah today. So we're going to preview quickly that game. And then Kendrick Perkins had something very interesting to say during the broadcast on ESPN. In a nutshell, we'll touch about this in a bit. That Chet Holmgren is a more polished, quote unquote, player than Wemby and could challenge Wemby for DPOY, Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah. Hot take right there from Kendrick. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But yeah, before we bring in our guest, Spurs got smoked in OKC. Said earlier, throw a dart at the dartboard. That went wrong. You want to talk about bench production? Sure. You want to talk about Wemby having a bad day, like career low bad day? Sure. Him getting tweaked in the first half? Yeah, that was not a good sight to see. Hey, what about maybe the absence of Devin Vassell is being felt now? Yeah. What about stagnant offense? What about the defensive end? How about zero defense when it comes to transition? I mean, it was just bad all around. It was not a good game. Look, we're not going to try to just pile them too much here. You know, they did have some glimmer of hope. They did make a comeback. They cut it down to about 10 points during the game. There were some bright spots, such as Harrison Barnes trying to be a hero. Malachi Brannon, again, coming on late in the second half. But again, there were just too many bad than good. This team has a lot to work on. And yeah, there was a lot of excitement coming into the season. CP3, Wemby year 2, Harrison Barnes, Devin Vassell when he gets back. There were so many great, but I think it's time for us to take a little bit of a pause and, pump the brakes a bit and think about this. This is still a work in progress. Said before, I said it again. The players from CP3 to Wemby to Pop to Barnes to Sohan, and so many others have said they still need time to get used to one another. Even before the game versus OKC, what did Chris Paul say? I'm still getting used to this team. I'm still getting used to playing with Wemby. I never had a player like that. So there's still some chemistry issues they need to work out. Good news, still early in the season. The bad news, they're playing in the West, and they're in 2-game losing streak, and they're 1-3 heading into tonight's game versus Utah. Yeah, not a good start for your Silver and Black to start the new season. All right, let's go ahead and talk about what happened in OKC, preview tonight's game versus Utah, and then get into Kendrick Perkins and what he had to say with our guest. He is back, everybody. He is Raul Dominguez of the AP Sports, based out here in San Antonio. He is my go-to guy for post-game recaps, and he's back once again. Raul, I was kind of hoping maybe we would talk about the Spurs giving OKC the first loss of the season. I think that was just pie in the sky dreaming, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think that they'd be able to beat OKC in OKC. I mean, Oklahoma City's a great team. I think people kind of maybe forget or overlooking. They lost to Dallas. Dallas was in the NBA Finals. They've lost to Oklahoma City, who was in the Western Conference Finals. So, 2 incredible teams, 2 great teams that actually got better. Dallas adds Clay, Oklahoma City adds Caruso and Hartenstein. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, these are 2 solid teams, but I did expect a little bit more of a fight.
Yeah. There was they threw punches. Basically, it looked like OKC was putting their hand on the forehead of the Spurs while the Spurs are doing this. That's what it looked like. But again, everybody, make sure to follow Raul on X at Dominguez Cinco. Again, he is the AP sports writer based here in San Antonio. All right, Raul, let's go and dive into what happened in OKC. Look, like I said in the intro, there were so many areas of concern from the Spurs point of view. Defensively, they got him. Offensively, they got him. I mean, there's just a mixed bag going on right now. We can't get through all of them. So, Raul, you were the guest. What is your first takeaway? What is your first concern from the Spurs' big loss last night?
I think one of the things that I've sort of noticed is during training camp, they talked about, Sandro talked about it, and a few other players talked about how during their offseason workouts, outside of training camp, before they got to training camp, about how they were working really hard on making sure that they weren't stagnant on offense, that they were cutting to the basket, a lot of movement, off the ball. And especially tonight, I didn't see a lot of that. I saw a lot of kind of standing around watching, a lot of, watching some guy kind of dribble it into the paint or, try and make an isolation move. And they're just sort of standing around. I think a few of them were outside the 3-point line. Some of them were down low, but there wasn't a lot of cutting to the basket that I saw. And I think that sort of there was a number of reasons for turnovers. They had 22 turnovers, and Oklahoma City scored 27 points off those turnovers. Yeah. Those, a lot of reasons for those turnovers, but I think a key reason is the fact that they're not moving, and you see them when the Oklahoma City was collapsing on the ball handler, they try and throw it out, and they're throwing the ball into traffic, trying to get through traffic. So you saw a lot of turnovers. I think if they're cutting, Oklahoma City can't play quite the defense that they want to, get easier shots. But right now, there just doesn't seem to be a lot of off the ball movement right now for the Spurs.
Yeah, there was a lot of standing around, which did not help Wemby, who had a career low in points, 6 points, 1 of 5 shooting. Can you believe it, Raul? Your franchise guy had 5 shot attempts. That was it. That can't happen. And this is not my point, what I'm going to say in a bit. I'm going to talk about something that's very glaring already. But going back to the stagnant offense that you brought up, that's impacting Wemby. I think it is. Okay, sure. Maybe it's a little bit of a fatigue from a long summer, Paris, training camp with Team France, etc. But they're just standing around. It doesn't create space for Wemby to be a offensive firepower that we know he can be. 6 points ain't going to cut it from your franchise player. Yeah, some of it's on him. Maybe he's just not being aggressive right now. Maybe he is fatigued, but the rest is also on this team. They're not moving the ball. They're standing around. They're not making shots. They're just not making life easy for Wemby. So turnovers, 27 points for OKC off 22 Spurs turnovers. That can't have it. I can even hear Pop right now as we do this show, walking into the conference room saying, well, when you come to brawl over 22 times and you don't make your 3 shots, what do you think is going to happen? That's the game right there. And Raul, it's a carbon copy of what happened against Houston in the last home game versus Houston. Same thing. Turnovers, you can't make shots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's they've shown flashes where the offense looks really good. Jeremy is doing an excellent job cutting to the basket. That's why he's getting a lot of dunks, a lot of layups, a lot of putbacks. Him and Wemby seem to do a really nice job sort of playing off each other. But a lot of the other players aren't. And, and I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to space it. They're trying to get someone outside the paint, or in the 3-point line to try and take some of those threes. But, I think Doug McDermott did a heck of a job when he was here. He would, sit up in the 3-point line, but then he'd, when the defense was kind of falling asleep, he cut to the basket for backdoor layups. And I think Spurs need to maybe do a little bit of that just to kind of open up the 3-point shot, just to keep the defense honest. Because right now, it seems like without the cutting, it seems like they're able to collapse on Wemby a little bit more because, that they know that they have time to get back to whoever they're guarding.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Spurs didn't help themselves as well. On the defensive end, only 10 OKC turnovers for the game. So they were very valuing the ball. The Spurs were not making it tough on the OKC Thunder on the defensive side of things. Again, lack of transition defense, stopping those. Okay, fine. You turn the ball over, it happens. I get it. It's an NBA game, high school game. backyard in your neighborhood, you're going to have turnovers. But to allow 27 points on 22 turnovers, that's unacceptable. No transition defense whatsoever. Now, the Spurs did win the rebounding battle. They have 52-39, but that just didn't cut it. They didn't capitalize on out rebounding OKC to at least close the gap. Hey, I want to talk about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need and the place where to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of a game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bet. Just visit FanDuel.com right now to join today. By the way, the app is very easy to use, user-friendly. It's very intuitive and not hard to navigate whatsoever. Sign up is easy. Hey, look, NFL action, as mentioned, is underway. NBA action is underway. Your Spurs are underway right now. What more do you need? Go to FanDuel.com right now to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. Again, $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All that takes is just for you to go and sign up right now. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Hey, I want to talk to you about Mudslinger's Drive-Thru Coffee. Go there right now, San Antonio, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive, open every single day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. They have it all. Great menu, cold drinks, hot drinks, coffee, the signature drink, Mudslinger, iced lattes. Pick something you're craving, they'll have it. Check out the menu. We're a proud local sponsor of Locked On Spurs and a proud community member, serving San Antonio the best coffee in the city. Go there right now, open every single day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. They have the Lightning Bolt series, which includes the Alien, which is a drink made in honor of Victor Wembanyama. Got to try it. Speaking of which, hey, they have these drinks, like I was mentioned right now, the Power Lightning Bolt series. They're going to be containing Lotus Energy. That's 7 power plant extracts. That gives them flexibility to create new drinks. But if you want Red Bull, you just tell them and they'll put it in there. But the default will be Lotus Energy. Go there right now, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive. They even got mini donuts. Best spot in the city to get yourself some coffee. Go there right now, San Antonio. Follow them on social media at Mudslinger SATX. Go there right now because life is too short for bland coffee.
This is Emilio Rivera, El Padrino for the Mayans MC. You are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
Thunder had a 19-point lead at one point. Now, credit the Spurs, Raul. They did have a comeback. They cut it to about 8 points in the second half. Led by Harrison Barnes in the second half. He's already connected on threes. More on that in a bit. But again, just not enough. And against OKC, a team that likely is going to be either in the NBA Finals or at the Western Conference Finals, you almost got to play perfect basketball against this team because this team will clamp down on you on defense and they'll torch you on offense. The Thunder had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players in double figures, while the Spurs had 4. They got offense, they got defense, don't they, Raul?
Yeah, Oklahoma City is just a tremendous team. I mean, if someone said that they, predicted Oklahoma City is going to win the West, I'd say that was a good prediction. Just because of how talented they are. They've got a little bit more experience after last season, and again, adding Caruso and Hartenstein is that's huge for them because they didn't really lose anything. In order to get those 2 players. So, it's a great team, but, still expect the Spurs to show a little bit more of a fight. They did had some good games against Oklahoma City last season. Just tonight just was not one of them.
No, not one of them. All right. So, Raul, he touched on turnovers and lack of movement on the offensive end. I'm going to go with 3-point shot. I've been harping about this since the offseason. I've been harping about this in preseason, and I've been harping on this when it starts the new season. Through 4 games, it's already more of a pattern now, Raul. Mm-hmm. This team can't make 3 shots, and they can't defend the 3. They can't. Mm-hmm. They can't. Big issue what happened in the loss versus Houston. Miscommunication. Van Vliet hits a 3. Game over. Pretty much nail in the coffin. You fast forward to last night against the Thunder. The Spurs took 36 3-point attempts, made 12, good for 33%, while the Thunder took 41 attempts, made 17, connected on 42% of their three-point shots. So right there, strike one, Spurs, you get outshot from the three line. But you don't defend the three line, as again, the Spurs allowed them to connect on 42% of their three-point shots. This is an issue. The Spurs don't have reliable three-point shooters, consistent three-point shooters, a consistent threat. They don't have that. Chris Paul was perhaps one of your better three-point shooters against the Thunder. 3 for 7. That's not acceptable. What happened to Champagny? Where did he go? He had that hot start in the preseason, hot start to the regular season, and he's kind of finished. You look at his stat line here. I have it here. He connected on 1 for 4 shots for 3 points. That was it. Did that in 20 minutes. Again, Raul, is this kind of a really big concern for this team? This team just doesn't have three-point shooters. They can't defend that three.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the ball movement and players cutting. I mean, one of the best things, Tony Parker was a great guard. One of the things that made him so good was the fact that he would drive in the lane and then he would either create his own shot or he'd kick it out for an open three. Right now, it seems like it's more of sort of one guy kind of dribbling in, trying to get in, and then he can't get it, get as close as he wants or get the shot he wants. So he'll sort of throw it out to someone at 3-point, and they're not really getting that open look. It's contested threes, so it's just a matter of maybe a little bit more ball movement, getting some open threes, a little bit more maybe movement off the ball in order to create some space. I mean, a lot of these defenders are collapsing on the ball handler, so they could, players can either drive to the basket for a layup or reset, somewhere off the 3-point line where it's harder to get back to them.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And again, I cannot look at that roster right now and say, oh yeah, that's our Doug McDermott. That's our Matt Bonner. That's our dead-eye shooter. I can't do that. I can't look at Sohan. I can't look at Trey Jones when he gets back. Maybe Vassell. Sure. Keldon, nope. The list goes on and on. And there was a point in the game, Raul, where I was like, you know what, Pop? Just throw out Mamu. What do you got to lose at that point? He must be one of the better 3-point, or at least the more reliable 3-point shooters on the roster. Wemby was having an off shooting night. Yeah, it's just bad. That could be something they addressed at the All-Star break / trade deadline, waiver wire, all that good stuff. Maybe, but I don't know if it'd be worth it at that point if their record is well below 500. At that point, I think they should just tank the rest of the way. But nevertheless, yeah, that is a big, big concern. It's rearing its ugly head early in the season. Some other final stats from the game last night versus the Thunder. For your Spurs, Harrison Barnes led the way with 18 points, 7 for 12 shooting, 2 for 3 from the 3-point line. And then Harrison Barnes 18 points, and then Sohan had 17 points. He went 7 for 16 in 31 minutes. And Chris Paul had 14 points and 9 assists, 3 turnovers, and 3 for 7 from the 3 line. Off the bench, it was Malachi Branham again with 19 minutes and 15 points. Just quickly before we talk about the Jazz game tonight, Malachi has been showing a little bit of life in the last couple of games, but he has kind of had a slow start. He doesn't start really cooking until the second half. My other question for you, Raul, is what happened to Keldon? Where's Keldon? Where's your 6-man?
Keldon's playing hard. He's just, one of the things I was thinking about when you're talking about the 3-point defense, I don't think it's definitely not a lack of effort, but it seems like they're sort of collapsing on the ball and then not getting back. And, at times it seems like they're a little off as far as someone will, collapse on a defender, collapse on a ball handler or someone else. And then that person, I guess, is supposed to take, whoever they're guarding, and they're not doing that. They're sort of both attacking a player and then, leaving someone wide open. So with Keldon, I don't, it's definitely not a lack of effort. I think it's more of maybe him trying to do too much with Keldon. Keldon just plays with emotion, I still think he's going to do well this season, but just kind of thinking about it, I think they all kind of just need to settle down and settle into their roles and realize, that they're not all gonna, be 20-point scorers. They're not all gonna, be the best defender. They just need to kind of settle in their roles. And right now, it just seems like a lot of them are trying to do a little bit too much, trying to do a little bit too much defensively, trying to do a little bit too much offensively rather than playing as a team. It seems like it's a lot of one-on-one, a lot of trying to guard someone, working really hard to try and stop someone rather than realizing, hey, I've got Wemby behind me. I can, sort of steer him into Wemby.
This is Emily Swallow, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
Yeah, and the Spurs, they really can't dwell on this too much because they have their first back-to-back. Yesterday was OKC, tonight is Utah. More on that in just a bit. But, so your Spurs lose to the Thunder. We have it here, 105-93. Yeah, 105-93. The Spurs dropped to 1-3 on the season, 2-game losing streak. They got the Jazz tonight out in Utah. By the way, the Thunder were led by Lou Dort with 20 points. And while Chet Holmgren, more on that later, 19 points and 5 rebounds. SGA, 18 points and 2 for 10 from the 3-point line. So those guys, man, that's a good team, man. That is a firepower team. There is one player that they got over. There is one. I'm sorry, I should not say player, but I should say staff member. They got over there. I wish it was back. The shot doctor. Chip England. Imagine him still with the Spurs. Maybe the Spurs don't have this shooting issues.
I would love to. I mean, I know Wemby's been working with Crawford, work with Jamal in the offseason, but it would have been interesting to see what Chip could have done or would have done with Victor. I don't know. He definitely would have helped, but I don't know how much or how. But that would have been interesting to see because you saw what he did with Tony. How he was able to turn the game around. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So your Spurs again cannot dwell on the loss last night versus OKC for not that much time because they got their second game of a back-to-back tonight versus Utah. Utah is 0-4 to start the season, but they got the Spurs on their calendar, so they might be like this, Raul, and get a first win tonight. All right. The Jazz again, 0-4 to start the season. What do you just want the Spurs to do tonight to snap this 2-game losing skid?
Yeah, I was going to say the one thing they definitely do not need is they do not need to be Utah's first win, and Utah's got a good squad. They're just sort of scuffling right now. But if you lose the way Spurs did tonight to Oklahoma City, and then if they come back and lose a back-to-back against Utah, and give Utah their first win, that's going to really deflate this team, I think, and that's going to be a really long flight home. So. Spurs, I think I'd just like to see them just kind of relax, Again, it seems like they're trying to do too much. It seems like Stephen had a great start, but it seems like Stephen sort of taking a step back and taking a step back as far as like seems like he's trying to be selfless and pass the ball a little bit more, he needs to start taking a shot, he needs to start, kind of taking over the ball handling, taking some shots. He needs to go back to the way he was playing initially. Keldon needs to sort of be that Jeremy role, I think, just sort of crashing the boards and doing follow-ups and cutting to the rim. Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes did a great job tonight, stepping up as veterans, and scoring when they needed to. But nobody else sort of, they were kind of trying to lead a charge, and they look back and there's nobody back there, following them. So that's tough. I'd like to see them all just sort of maybe just relax and, stop trying to do too much.
Yeah. For the Jazz, though, there are, again, 0-4 to start the season, but 3 straight losses at home. So that bodes well for the Spurs. Can we double the what could have been for the Spurs with Lauri Markkanen? That would have been, maybe the Spurs aren't 1-3 to start the season if that had happened. But Markkanen is leading the team with about 18 points per game. So again, recent history on the Spurs side, in this 4-game losing streak for Utah, they're handing out fewer assists than the opposition. They're making less field goals made in the 4-game losing streak. Again, 4 straight losses, 3 of them are at home. They're not getting it done on the defensive end. They have fewer steals. in 3 straight games in the opposition, and they're recording less blocks in 3 straight games against the opposition. So again, the Jazz are, kind of teetering as well. Just as we joked about how the Jazz might be, drooling right now to see the Spurs on their schedule, but also the opposite too. The Spurs can really use Utah to maybe help them snap out of the funk they're in. It would be great to see Wemby have a Wemby night versus Utah. Utah's not doing it defensively. We went over some numbers right now. They're on a losing streak, so that could bode well for the Spurs. I think the Spurs really got to win this, and I agree with you, Raul. If they lose this game tonight versus Utah, that's going to be one ugly trip to their next stop. They cannot drop this game. The matchup I want to see, obviously, Markkanen and Wemby. I don't know if Wemby will play. You think he'll play tonight? He tweaked his ankle. I think
it's going to be hard to keep Wemby out of the lineup. But I think Wemby's going to want to play, especially with the way that they're playing right now, the way that he's playing right now. I think maybe you'll see some limited minutes for him, but I really don't think Wemby's – obviously, the team's going to have the final say, but I just don't see Wemby sitting out this one.
No, not, and I don't either. Wemby's the type of player that you have to, chain him to the bench or something to get him out there. Just like Manu was. Manu, I think, didn't Pop even admit that Manu would lie about his injuries just to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think Manu once said something about like he told him about an injury and they sat him out after that. He didn't tell him like, no, I'm fine, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. The Jazz are averaging 102 points per game to start the season. However, they're giving up 119 points per game. Spurs should be able to capitalize on that. On paper, Raul, it looks like the Spurs could win. But if the Spurs were to drop this game tonight versus Utah, I tell you what, Raul, I would not be surprised one bit. I wouldn't be surprised. You?
I think the Spurs will pull it out. I think they need this game. I think they need sort of a bounce back game after these tough 2 losses.
Yeah,
I think they'll pull it out just because I think Utah's just sort of again they're sort of scuffling right now. But Utah always seems to play well against San Antonio. Going back to the days of Malone and Stockton. So it wouldn't surprise me if they lost. But I'm not. I'm thinking the Spurs should pull this one out.
Yeah, who's always a Spurs killer? Clarkson.
Mm-hmm.
He sees the Spurs in silver and black. He's from San Antonio, I believe.
Yeah.
So
went to Wagner.
Yeah, he went to Wagner. So he lights up the court when he sees the hometown team Spurs against them. Yeah, he's a good player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a player I've always would love to see with the Spurs. With great bench player, great scorer. I think he'd do really well in San Antonio, obviously, but because he does well. He's done well pretty much at every stop he's had, but he's one guy that I'd love to see on the Spurs bench.
Yeah, he's averaging 15.5 points per game right now, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and he's shooting 41% from the field and 22 or 23% from the 3 line. Yeah, I am chalking up a win for the Spurs tonight. I hope so, but I'd say this much. If the Spurs drop the game tonight, expect Spurs fans on social media to go ballistic, Raul. It's going to be a bloodbath tonight. Yeah.
I'm sure they already are after the loss tonight. So,
yeah. I'm trying to look it up right now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
No, I'm sorry. They probably already are, after the loss last night. So, against the Thunder, I think people were expecting, Spurs to go, win 90% of their games right now.
Once again, we're joined by Raul Dominguez of the AP Sports. Make sure to follow him on X at Dominguez5. Do that right now because the streets are saying that Raul, and they're saying that you beat up Mr. T back in the day in his Clubber Lang days. Is that true, Raul?
No, I stayed away from Clubber. I didn't want him to do to me what Mike Tyson did to, I think it was, what's his name? I can't remember that guy's name. He beat him up and jumped over the limousine or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, all right. All right. Well, before I let you go, Raul, we got to talk about this. So, last night versus the game against the Thunder, at halftime, Kendrick Perkins brought something up that kind of ignited a lot of Spurs fans on social media, thanks to me, because I put it out there, and the Spurs fans got crazy about it. In a nutshell, Kendrick Perkins of ESPN said that Chet Holmgren is a more polished player than Victor Wembanyama. He also said that he could challenge Wemby for DPOI, Defensive Player of the Year. That's a hot take, Raul. I'll let you go first. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, he's I think he's partially correct. Chet's a heck of a player. I mean,
yeah,
and he's a really good kid. I mean, good young man rather.
Yeah.
I know Spurs fans, don't like him because sort of that rivalry with Chet with Victor. But I'm telling you, like every time we talk to Chet, after the games and stuff, he's a really nice young man. Very very cordial, very humble, and he's a heck of a player. So I could definitely see him. Challenging for Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's going to be one of the better defensive players his entire career. His length, his activity. So I think with Kendrick saying that, I don't think that's too far fetched. I mean, Chet's a heck of a defensive player. Don't take that away from him. But as far as him being more polished than Wemby, I don't know about that. I mean, Wemby's game is still developing, yes. But you're talking about a young man who scored, 26 points, 7 rebounds, had 2 assists and a steal in the gold medal game against the United States, against, the best that some of the best, the United States had, Bam Adebayo, LeBron James, Steph Curry, that whole group. And, USA wanted to win the gold medal, obviously. Mm-hmm. And you had France, you had Wemby just sort of carrying France in that game. So to say that Chet's game is more polished than Wemby, I think that's just one of those hot takes where they kind of say something just to kind of stir something. But I think that's not really giving credit to the player that Wemby has become. Yes, Wemby's still developing, but, he's already a great player. He's getting better. And the other thing is I think it's a little easier to say because Chet doesn't have quite the same pressure that Victor does. I mean, Chet has Shea. He's got Jalen Williams. He's got a great team around him right now. They're still a young team, but they have, they've been playing for a little longer and definitely playing together longer. And kind of looking at the games, like whenever Victor has the ball, they collapse 2-3 defenders on him. I don't really see that with Chet, so to say that Chet's game is more polished, no, I don't see that at all.
Yeah, and also to remember, yes, Chet is in his second season, but this is really his third season. So he got a chance to be around NBA players, NBA team, facilities, practices. He got to see that, study film. He got a head start on Wemby. Second, Wemby had a long summer. And you can see that's impacting him. And this is not an excuse, but it is just a fact. He's been under the weather. Raul, you were there with me at the press conference. He's not been feeling himself. He said himself he's not in rhythm, and he said it is because I had to play in the Olympics. Again, Chet didn't have to do that. Chet had a long summer to rest, as you noted. Also, too, the team around Wemby maybe it's not as potent as you brought up as Chet is. There you go. So, if you were to go put them one-on-one against each other, best of 5, I would take Wemby all day. Wemby is a better shooter. I think Wemby is more skilled. And I think the added pressure on Wemby is going to help him long-term more so than Chet will. It'll be interesting to see how Chet would respond if, let's just say, I hope it doesn't happen, but SGA gets injured. And then, he becomes by default, the main guy for them. How would he handle that pressure? We haven't seen him in that spotlight yet. And also, too, it's still a young season, Raul. It's young. It's young. We're only, for the Spurs, 4 games in. That's it. Bring this up around the All-Star break. We'll see where Chet and Wemby are, records aside, just how they are individually. And then we can talk about that. But right now, again, way, way too soon. Raul, your thoughts?
Yeah, and you look at what Wemby did, that one game against OKC where, Wemby was definitely fired up. I think it was right after he had lost the first 2 months of the Rookie of the Year, and he came and he had a great game against Chet. Blocked Chet's shot there, I think in the final minute or whatever to save the game or to preserve the lead. So, if you're just basing your opinion just off of these first 4 games. And, I don't know what to tell you. Victor's proven he's polished. He's struggling a little bit, but you look at his 3-point shots are better. His footwork is good. He still has to develop still has some development to go, but he's to me, he's more of a polished scorer than Chet is, and that's not a knock against Chet. Chet's a heck of a player, but Victor, I think, is something special.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, give it time, Kendrick. Give it time. Bring that up at the All-Star break, Kendrick, if you're watching, because we know you're watching Locked On Spurs. Of course you are. But if you bring that up later on, again, way too soon to do that. Look, and the Spurs roster as right now is depleted. They lost their backup point guard, and they don't have arguably their second best player right now, Devin Vassell. So let's bring that back again. And then by the way, the Spurs got to go through that transition too, readjusting to the lineup shift when Devin comes back. And I think it'll be good for everybody when Champagne goes back and everybody's in the rhythm. So again, give it time, let this team cook a bit before we go that way. And by the way, if he does challenge Wemby for the DPOI, sure, why not? Yeah, make Vegas a little happy. That ain't gonna happen. Wemby's gonna take that. There's no doubt about that. That is Wemby's award for as long as he wants it. He is that strong defensively. Hey, Raul, before we go, real quick. So if y'all are wondering what in the what am I wearing? So this is, if y'all can see on the screen here, this is a Spurs themed baseball jersey. Now I'm covering it up because they got a green screen behind me and there's green on this and it looks like I have no arms. Like there'd be holes in my arm right now. So that's why I'm wearing it. But nevertheless, this is the gift that you'll get when the Spurs come back on their road trip for, I got it right here, Raul. There it is, Hispanic Heritage Night. Yes, the Spurs will be celebrating Hispanic Heritage Night on Saturday, November 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Frost. Now, let me make it very clear. This is not a giveaway jersey that you see me wearing when you walk into the Frost. Okay, they're not going to be on those tables. You know what I'm talking about, Raul, where the tables with all the boxes on. Yeah, it's not going to be there, okay? As you can see on your screen, this is part of a ticket package. So you got to get the Hispanic Heritage jersey. Where you get it is get the ticket package. So how do you get that? All you got to do is text SOMOS, SOMOS, just text that. Just text to SOMOS, SOMOS, and then you'll get all the information there. It is a great jersey. As you can see, again, I'm not wearing it because you can see the green on the sleeves, and that cuts my arm off right there. But it's going to be a fantastic night. The Spurs do it up well. For those y'all familiar with Mexican culture, there's going to be an altar to celebrate the Day of the Dead. So bring your offerings if you have one. The Spurs are encouraging it. Again, if you want this jersey, you got to get that ticket package. Raul, should be a fun night for the Spurs at Hispanic Heritage Night.
Yeah, Spurs always do a good job with those kind of nights. Military appreciation night, indigenous, celebrating indigenous people. They always do a good job. I wish they'd do more with the the sort of the Fiesta colors. I wish they'd bring back the that Fiesta jersey, but because I know fans love that. It's part of the culture, and it just looks good. But that is definitely a sharp baseball jersey. I imagine we're going to see quite a few of those.
Oh yeah. By the way, y'all can see a little bit of what's going on with the green screen here. The blacks, that stuff right there. That's why I have to wear an undershirt. Otherwise, it'll just penetrate through. Those are great.
You could have done some CGI or something. Had like a claw or something.
I should have done that. Man, it would have been for Halloween because today is Halloween. By the way, everybody, happy Halloween. That would have been awesome. Planning next time. That would have been fun. Just be like, so here, and then we have the alien pop out like. Coming out. But yeah, these are green marks. It celebrates again Hispanic Heritage Night. You get one more time here. That's what it looks like. Again, these are those green stripes there, but again, the green screen. But if you want to see what it looks like without the green screen, there it is. That's it right there. Again, Hispanic Heritage Night is going to be this Saturday, November 2nd, 7 p.m. Spurs Wolves. Get your jersey. How do you get it? Get that ticket package. Just text SOMOS right there. By the way, there's going to be a lot of other events at Hispanic Heritage Night. So kudos to the Spurs. Get yourself a jersey. It's a very nice jersey, by the way. I liked it. All right, Raul. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to jump on here and Locked On Spurs to recap the Spurs loss to the Thunder, game against Jazz tonight, and Kendrick Perkins' hot take again. Yeah, so many hot takes. What's going on in your neck of the woods over the AP Sports?
Just kind of seeing how the Spurs, kind of get out of this, and right now that's the biggest thing. NBA season's starting off really well. Knicks are obviously doing, Knicks, Celtics, Lakers. Those are always the big three markets. So I think it's going well for the NBA. So just kind of watching the whole season.
Absolutely.
Spurs sort of get into that thing, get it into the playoff picture.
Yeah. I don't think that's gonna happen, Raul. They ain't gonna happen. I wish, but if this is any indication how the season's gonna play out, tank for flag. Just kidding. Make sure to follow Raul on X at Dominguez5. Do that right now. Great follow. Again, he is with the AP Sports right here in San Antonio. Hey, thanks for y'all for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Spotify Plus app. Pick a platform. Let us know what you think about tonight's game, yesterday's loss, and of course what Kendrick Perkins had to say over at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. Just go to YouTube, search Locked On Spurs, subscribe, and your number one spot for all things silver and black. Hey, we got a newsletter. I'm going to tell y'all, we got a newsletter. The link is in the description below. Click on that, subscribe, do that right now. Get yourself a little update of what's going on here in Locked On Spurs and the rest of the NBA world. So for Raul Dominguez, who beat up Mr. T, he's just he ain't bragging. But I seen video of it. He beat him up pretty bad. Good job, Raul. Took out Clubber Lang. He is Raul Dominguez. I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.